Hey everybody, it's Bo Beery. I'm a multifamily broker in the Florida region, and today we're going to be talking about why I think cap rates are completely worthless, and I'm going to go over to Spreadsheet to prove it. Cap rates only tell a very small part of the story. It's the current owner's income, which you're probably going to be able to add to, minus the current owner's vacancy, which might be too high or too low, minus the current owner's expenses, which you'll never have after closing, equals a net income that you'll probably never also have, divided by a purchase price. The equation is just flawed. It completely ignores any benefits that you can bring to a property's income, the vacancy, and the expenses. But it also ignores two huge parts, right? Number one, it ignores debt. Oh my gosh, we're in August 2020 and you can borrow for phenomenal rates, great amortization periods. And the second thing it ignores, which is huge and what we're all in it for, is the end value in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Totally ignores that. The focus should be cash on cash return, even with principal reduction added back in, and IRR, which takes into consideration the entire hold period, including the sale. So let's jump right into the spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet I use on a regular basis. It's super simple and easy. It's one that I use to calculate apartment values and potentials very, very quickly. It's not the very in-depth 10-year Argus analysis, but it helps on doing quick analysis here. So all of the green cells are input cells, and they spit out all the white cells and all the yellow cells, right? Now follow me here. Let me set up the scene so I can prove why cap rates are meaningless. We got a $10 million property that we're borrowing 70% on, $1.3 million in gross income. Here's the other income and vacancy. So this all equates to a net income of $582,000 with these expenses. Our debt that we're going to use is a 3.1 rate, 30-year amortization, and that kicks out debt of $358,000. So you have a before-tax cash flow of $223,000, right? Now, the net income divided by this purchase price is a 5.82% cap rate. Now, many investors right here, anything that has a 5 in front of it, they would have walked, right? But let me show you where they would have come up wrong. Here is where the power of debt comes in, right? So if you'll remember, we're borrowing under these terms. And so at a 5.8 cap, that's actually bringing us a 7% cash on cash return. Now, if you remember, cash on cash return is the return after expenses and all debt. But there's another component that's phenomenal at play here, and that's adding back in the principal reduction. Now, if we go to the amortization table here and we plug in these same terms, that spits out roughly a $30,000 principal and interest payment, of which $12,000 is going to principal. Now, you add up those 12 months, and you got $144,000 in principal going back into your pocket. Now, you're not putting it in your pocket every month, but you kind of are, right? Now, that's bringing us almost a 12% return cash on cash. That's pretty good. Now, I understand most investors are syndicators and have investors to pay, so they really can't count the principal. And I also understand many investors would like to earn 8% cash on cash. That's kind of the gold standard. But nowadays in 2020, sometimes they get down to 6 or 7% depending on the value add left in the property. Now we're going to look at the big picture, which is the IRR. Now the IRR is the money that you have in it, cash flows that you earned along the way each year, and then the sale event in the future. Let's see what that bad boy looks like. So if we click on our IRR tab, I made this super simple. I assumed the cash flows increased at 5% per year, which is the same thing as a net operating income increase because debt is constant, and so the NOI would be going up at 5% as well. But we're going to be putting down $3,150,000, right? So if you go back to the cash flow tab, That's $3 million down plus $150,000 in closing costs. We've got $223,000 in cash flow, if you'll remember that from right here. And we're increasing that at 5% per year through year 7. And then we're having a sale event. So here's the year 7 calculation. And then we're selling it in year 7. Now, I've done the math ahead of time, and I assumed NOI also growing at 5% per year to the end and dividing it by roughly a 6 cap. And then you pay off your closing costs, your commissions, and your debt balance, and you'd walk away with about $6.5 million. Now, that $6.5 million is your profit. It takes into consideration your principal balance that's been being paid down. It also pays you back the money that you had in it. And when you take this full calculation, which is done right here using the function key and the IRR, you have a 17% per year return. Now, I don't know about you, but a 17% annual return for 7 years straight sounds pretty good to me. The question is, did the investor in the very beginning who shut the whole project down because it had a 5 in front of it on the cap rate, did they do the further analysis to see they could get to 17%? And by the way, this analysis didn't even look at the consideration for, could we raise the rents? Can we do better on the vacancy? Can we save money on the expenses? This was just on the as-is basis moving forward. My point is, cap rates only make sense if you're looking at a totally stabilized property. I'm talking about one that's had the full value add done. You can't do any better on income. You can't do any better on vacancies. The expenses are perfect, and how many of those actually exist? So for those investors that must ask about cap rate, I think at minimum there should also be additional questions to the broker or the seller. What's in the cap rate? What does that include in terms of vacancy? Where's the rents on the gross income in comparison to the market? What are the expense ratios, maybe as a percentage of gross income or a dollar per unit? And what's in the expenses? Were the property taxes already adjusted for the post-sale? Did it have reserves in it? Does it have a market rate management fee? There's so many questions that must be asked behind just the words cap rates. And the same thing goes for analyzing cash-on-cash return and IRRs. You got to know what makes up those figures, right? That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on cap rates, cash-on-cash returns, and IRRs when you're looking at properties to buy. Also, if there's any other videos you'd like me to do, I would love to hear them. Post down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.